Hi, so World of Warcraft 2, will it ever be a thing? Is it going to be a thing? Is there going to be an announcement? There's three main themes in this that I'm going to rattle through quite quickly and then sort of get onto my thoughts on it. The first of which is what's prompted me to do this video is a combination of two things. One, there's a Reddit post talking about why a World of Warcraft 2 would be bad. I also think it would be bad in many ways, certainly in the short term, but for potentially different reasons. The second thing is, I know that I've talked about this quite a lot, but I've talked about it in pieces, bits and pieces. I haven't actually done a video on it as such. It's cropped up in like Q&A threads. It's cropped up in streams. So I thought I'd condense, at least most of my thoughts, the ones that occurred to me at the time, into one video as well. And the other thing is people are getting to the point where they're sort of asking themselves, well, BlizzCon is coming up. BlizzCon, of course, are expecting the announcement for the next expansion. But Blizzard haven't actually said they're announcing the next expansion at BlizzCon. There's the title of the discussion on Friday where they're going to be presenting what's next for World of Warcraft. And the old tinfoil hats coming out is sort of suggesting, well, maybe they're going to announce a new expansion, but maybe they're going to announce a new game, or maybe both. I certainly still think it's going to be the new expansion, because after all, we know that Antorus is going to be the last major raid of Legion. Blizzard have said that. Ian Hassakostas has said that. That doesn't stop there being a small, medium raid after it, but in terms of the major raid, this is the last one. So they're not just going to have Legion as, which would be unusual for WoW, but of course they could do it, as just an expansion that goes on for some time. Also, we know, and this isn't a spoiler anymore, I'm going to talk about the details of it, but Blizzard keeps saying this, this is now in there, isn't it? We're ending the Burning Legion. Now, I was always very surprised about I wouldn't believe this all the way through. I mean, some people sort of thought that all the way through Legion. Blizzard seemed to suggest when they finally convinced me that this was happening, and I saw the data mine stuff, and then Blizzard in the Q&A were talking about the end of Legion. And the way Ian Hassakostas was talking about it as if they'd never made any secret of it, which, fair enough, they may not have done. But I wasn't buying it. I mean, I could accept the fact that, yes, we're going to really defeat a full-blown invasion on Azeroth, and that we're even going to go, when we find about Argus, yes, we can go to Argus and give them a punch-up and basically say to them, look, you can't just keep invading us, and we are going to hurt you. We're going to. So I could accept the fact that we're going to go on the offensive now against the Legion, and we can hurt them. But to actually finish them off, I wasn't believing it until I actually saw it in black and white. And but now it's happened. And I always felt that because the Burning Legion is our main existential threat, our common enemy it has been throughout World of Warcraft. The old gods obviously are there, but that's from, the old gods is something that's been properly explored in the literature, not very much in the game. Even in Cataclysm, which, had a lot of old gods' stuff. Of course we had Cthulhu with Anchorage as well. So there has been old gods lore, of course, in the game. But it hasn't been fleshed out as much as... Like, you wouldn't know, if you'd only played the game and not read any books or anything like that, you wouldn't know a great deal about Old Gods in the Void, if you were honest. It's been re-explored again with the Illyria storyline on Argus, but... And at the time I was thinking to myself, okay, so this is fantastic, because the Burning Legion gone, that means we've got to have completely new lore now. They've got to go in it's going to be a new era for World of Warcraft. Come what may, that's all there is to it. The Burning Legion have gone, it's a new era. Now, what usually do you call a new era in a gaming series? You call it the next game in the series, don't you? That side of it as well. And I always felt that what would make a fantastic ending for World of Warcraft to lead into a World of Warcraft 2 would be, one, the Burning Legion ending, and two, Azeroth awakening. And, obviously then we have to evacuate because it's going to become a Titan, and we go to another world. Obviously, there was a slight flaw in that plan, because why would the Horde and the Alliance go to the same world just to kick off against each other again? But at the same time, it wouldn't make any sense for them to go to different worlds either. So, yeah, there was a small fly in the ointment of my plan there. But nonetheless, the concept of the end of Legion being the end of World of Warcraft leading into the next Warcraft game was something that I'd held for a while and was seemingly dashed there. Now, as I say, I don't think they're suddenly going to say, by the way, Legion was the last expansion, we're now going to be going to the next one. Because apart from the fact they've already said they've been working on another expansion, they made no secret of that. They just haven't said they're announcing it at BlizzCon. We know they sort of have to. I mean, one, we've seen artwork for it. We've seen Kul Saras artwork for it. That's for World of Warcraft. That's not for another game. And also, it's the World of Warcraft files. Also, you know, they have to as well, because we know they're working on a project at the moment. Again, this is probably what's stoking up a bit of, you know, discussion, because they've been advertising for various people to work on a new project, which doesn't have to be a Warcraft-based game. Blizzard have a number of titles, but it could be. And it wouldn't have to be World of Warcraft 2. It could just be what you might call Warcraft 5, I guess. If you call World of Warcraft Warcraft 4. Not an RTS game, but, you know, another genre potentially. But any number of things. But, you know, I'd say we can still know that there's a new expansion coming, because we've seen some of that artwork for it. They have to announce it nowish, because you need a good 9 months of open alpha and beta to be able to test it properly. World of Warcraft expansions are actually pretty good quality when they come out. You don't have a load of bugs. You have the odd one. You can't stamp them all out. But you don't have very many, because at the end of the day, there's plenty of testing on it. Unlike some other MMOs that bring out an expansion, there's quite a lot wrong with it, because they don't really do all that open testing. It's too much internal testing, and maybe not even enough of that. Obviously, I'm not talking about server stability here. We had an issue at the start of WoD, but that was a hardware issue, not the development of the game itself. So yeah, it sort of has to be announced. Otherwise, and again, because we know they're not going to allow this content drought. They've been good to their word on that one. With the lack of content drought in the game, we believe they're not going to leave an hour of us doing nothing. So they are right up against it. So we are going to see that. I promise. As far as I can. So why would a World of Warcraft 2 be bad? Well, the first thing is, let's talk about the money side of it. So to even develop another Warcraft game, they have to go to the people that control the purse strings, the development costs, and they have to be able to say to them, look, we need this new game because World of Warcraft's not going to go on forever. To which they may agree, but also say, but at the moment it's raking it in. We're absolutely making piles of money. We're swimming in money. So do you have to really start it now? And even if you sort of say there's a big lead in, that's several years down the line. So then let's say you wanted to do another MMO version, World of Warcraft 2. So you can say we're going to really modernize it. We're going to make it loads better. Now in the Reddit post I was reading, one drawback they said with this is that would include potentially the more realistic graphics. They explained that the cartoony graphics have been really good because it's allowed the game to run very, very well, even on lower quality, lower spec PCs. Now, it is true that World of Warcraft does run very well on lower spec PCs, and I'm perfectly willing, I have no knowledge of this myself, but I'm perfectly willing to believe that the art style chosen helps to do this. I can even give you a good example of this from my own personal tale. I stopped playing World of Warcraft after the second version of Naxx in Wrath of the Lich King. It was god-awful. I was thinking Wrath of the Lich King is terrible because I got to level cap. Within a few days, I'd cleared all the raid content. I wasn't happy. I didn't know that Ulduar was coming, which would be like what some people say is one of the best, if not the best raid ever. But I didn't know that. So I stopped playing. I started playing like Lord of the Rings Online and Warhammer Online. And then after a while, my graphics card basically died. So I needed a new one. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, so all I could afford was a basic one. So I got it was not a great quality one. At which point Warhammer Online I couldn't run at all. And I don't just mean in mass PvP battles, because that's what that game was all about. I couldn't even do solo stuff with it. It was unplayable. Not just, this isn't a very good experience. Literally unplayable. So I had to stop that. Lord of the Rings Online was running better. I could play that a bit, but it wasn't, again, brilliant. And also, at the same time, a friend of mine was coming back to WoW to play casually. He keeps dropping in and out of it, and he wanted to play casually. So I said, okay, well, I'll come back and just play casually then. Now, the contrast was this. Warhammer Online couldn't even do solo stuff. Warcraft, World of Warcraft, I could raid, and it was fine. Obviously, the graphics settings weren't on Ultra exactly, but nor were they all on low. You know, I could still see everything I needed to see. It was all fine, and it looked fine, and it ran. It 10-man raiding. I actually did do a few 25-man pugs, though, and they were okay as well. That ran fine. And that's the difference. It is very well optimized. And I'm not convinced it's all down to the art style, but a lot of it could be. Certainly when I play more modern games with the art style I prefer, like Elder Scrolls Online. I mean, you know, I prefer that so much that sometimes I'm just riding around on it because I only play it a little bit. compared to WoW. I'm just riding around. I'll ride across a bridge over a stream and stuff, and I'll just look at how pretty it is, and I'll just stop still and stare at it for a bit because it's so great, and I'll just wish World of Warcraft was like that. At the same time, does it run as well as World of Warcraft? No. So there might be some argument with that. Would a World of Warcraft 2 have the same cartoony art style? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I would hope it wouldn't. But it's easy for me to say that with a very high-quality gaming PC. As the person in Reddit points out, a lot of people don't have that. It could drive a lot of players away. Would it? I don't know. Maybe it would. Obviously, you'd have to create a situation where you can allow the graphics settings to be knocked down to the point where it would play fine. Could you do that with that sort of art style? I don't know. I'm not an expert in graphics or art in games. But the other thing is, because it might well be that the reason why it has this cartoony style is to help it run, but I'm pretty sure I seem to remember that the stated reason at the time for it was that they wanted it to be exactly the same style as Warcraft 3, which it was. World of Warcraft has the same art style as Warcraft 3. And I'm pretty sure in the dark recess of my mind, here in an interview, I think maybe with Mike Morheim, where he talked about there was a bit of a fear that World of Warcraft wouldn't be successful. Obviously, they didn't think it was going to fail, otherwise they wouldn't have done it. But they weren't convinced it was going to be successful. They certainly didn't expect it to be successful as it became. And so they wanted to make sure that Warcraft 3, which was super successful, they got as many... They basically had World of Warcraft being Warcraft 4. They wanted people to migrate across to it. And so they provided that familiar feel. It's the same... it's like you're in Warcraft 3, but you can really go down into it and go into those buildings and all the rest of it, because they're the same buildings. You're just able now to go into them. It was all that sort of thing. They probably have more confidence to not do that. So unless the technical arguments are overwhelming, then maybe there is hope that they would do that. Then that comes on to why it's so popular in the first place. Because again, coming back to these money people, it's like we can make a much better game than World of Warcraft. We can really modernise it. That would get them thinking, yeah, okay, might be worth investing. To which they then say, can you get the same player base? Can you be making the same money? Can you be making more money if we had more stuff in? At that point, you'd be going, probably not. Because World of Warcraft 2, although, part of me is saying it would have to properly compete with other games. World of Warcraft has people who've got, they've got characters that they've invested time in it for so long. They've got all those titles and mounts and all the stuff you've collected over the years, all that time, all those memories that's keeping you in it. It's like velvet handcuffs, isn't it? If that's the phrase. Because you're kept comfortable. You know what you're going to get with World of Warcraft. Even when they change things like they have in Legion, you sort of know what you're going to get. It's comfortable. You know that you can, if you're playing at a certain level, like I know that I can play the game at a reasonable level. I don't know that of another game. Because I always say, the reason I'm playing World of Warcraft as much as I am, I would still, if they knackered the raiding, I would still play World of Warcraft, but I play it much more casually and I play other games more. And I still do the channel, of course, but I wouldn't be doing that high-end stuff, because if let's say they did something stupid like went for hard mode raiding, mythic raiding, they made it 15 man. No, that's me done. Forget it. I'm not even going to try. But I always say, that the raiding, the end game is so much better than any other MMO. But I can't know that. How can I know that? I haven't really experienced the other ones. To experience it, I'd have to be able to play another MMO as much as I play WoW. I'd have to level up characters, gear them up, learn how the game works in terms of the social side of it, get myself into guilds, work my way through the difficulties to get to the very hardest form of the game in PvE, in order to be able to compare it to World of Warcraft. And even then, I'd have to do it for a bit to make sure that it's not just the appeal of a new experience. Always have to avoid the new experience, don't we? That's why nostalgia is so strong, because it was people always have the fondest memories of when it was all new. So to do that, I would have to stop playing World of Warcraft, or at least play it only very casually, so that I'd have to have a leap of faith. And I'm not going to do that, because I don't know that the other game would be better. I'd be missing out on the brilliant end game in World of Warcraft for what? For a chance, and no more than that. So that keeps you in as well. The other thing is with another game is it's not just the time you've got invested in World of Warcraft. What might be, what might help them get a large player base, World of Warcraft 2 as well. Because we have to remember, World of Warcraft has a much larger player base and had a much larger player base, out of all proportion to the quality of the game. The quality of the game has always been high, by the way. I'm going to say that. Obviously, I've played for so many years and for so much of my life has been on this. But there was a bit of a perfect storm with World of Warcraft when it came out. First of all, I mean, it was coming off the back of a very successful series of games. Warcraft 1 was very successful. Warcraft 2 was. Warcraft 3 was. Blizzard itself has, as far as I can tell, have never produced a turkey. All of their games have been very good and very well received, critically acclaimed, all the rest of it. So there was no doubt in whatsoever that the World of Warcraft would also be a really good game, because it's not like they sometimes produce a great game and sometimes don't. They always produce great games. And but they had this thing, like in my country, for example, I can't speak for other countries, it may be the same in other countries. There was this situation where to play an MMO, what you really need is a broadband connection. Now, for some younger viewers there, you might, well, everything's broadband. It wasn't at the time. At the time World of Warcraft was coming out, I'd only just switched to broadband. I had dial-up, but it was not just me. It was people across the country in general, in the UK. That was the time when broadband was really being rolled out. Okay, before that time, even a year or two earlier, most people had dial-up. And we went to the point where World of Warcraft coincided with the time where actually it was switching to the point where most people had broadband. It was quite affordable, and you could get that, and it was great. So I think it rode that wave as well. Also, the fact, obviously, that it had that committed player base coming from Warcraft 3 to instantly fill up the coffers, so to speak. Also, the fact that Blizzard, is a great studio. It does things very well, and it did things very well. It brought stuff out when it was ready. There were things that weren't ideal about World of Warcraft. I mean, I can only talk about it from the point of view of playing it from May 2005. It came out about half a year before that in North America. It was only available in Europe from March 2005. But, it still seemed pretty good, well populated. And it just sort of grew from there. If World of Warcraft, even as it is now, I'm not talking about as it was then, as it is now, were to be launched as a new game, does anyone really believe it would get anything like the number of players that it currently gets? No. So World of Warcraft 2 would that? Probably not. But there would be some people who would, because there are, like, let's say they did screw up the raiding World of Warcraft, so I played it casually, and let's say it's ESO and that, played casually. Then let's say something happened in my life and I had to dramatically cut down on the amount of gaming I could do. And I could choose to either play ESO casually or play World of Warcraft casually. Now, I think ESO as a casual game is way better than WoW. Does that mean I would play ESO instead? No, I'd still play World of Warcraft. Reason for that? Elder Scrolls Online, I think, is a great game in many ways. And it's come, like World of Warcraft, it came off the back of a very successful series of games, the Elder Scrolls games. 5 of them. And people, shout their praises all the time, the people who've played them. I had a very good friend who was mad about Morrowind. He would always talk about Morrowind to me. Almost convinced me to get it, but I was playing other games at the time. Well, World of Warcraft for a start, I think. Or maybe it was Baldur's Gate still at the time. But anyway, I because I had other games I wanted to play, I didn't feel I had the time. But very successful series. But that is the key, that is the thing. I haven't played the Elder Scrolls games. I haven't played any of them. Not one of them. So all I've got is Elder Scrolls Online. World of Warcraft. I've played Warcraft 1. I played it when it came out. I played Warcraft 2. I played Warcraft 3. I played the expansions. I played World of Warcraft. So there's that continuation there. So I would play World of Warcraft 2. Because that storyline I'm invested in. I know all about the world. I know all about the games. It's the next chapter for me. Alright? Elder Scrolls Online isn't. Elder Scrolls Online is like watching the second film in a trilogy or the second book in a trilogy. I haven't seen the first bit. I don't know the full story. I'm not as invested in it. So even if a new one comes out, I'm much more likely to get the final one in the trilogy for the ones I've watched the first 2 parts as opposed to only the second part, if that makes sense. But then there's the other thing of it as well in terms of why World of Warcraft 2 would be bad. And this is what my great fear would be. So you have a situation where you at some point have to announce that you're doing it. and let's say it was an actual World of Warcraft 2. Because I think, if they announced a Warcraft 5, as we call World of Warcraft, Warcraft 4, a Warcraft 5, another Warcraft game that's not an MMO or an RTS, it's a different type of game, that would be fine, and I think that's probably why it's more likely to be the case. But I've got another couple of ideas about that in a minute. If they brought out another, like an actual literal World of Warcraft 2, this is where I think it would go wrong. Because at some point you have to announce you're doing it a long time ahead, at least a year, possibly more, ahead of when you're actually bringing it out. Because you've got to start the marketing ball rolling. You've got to get people knowing about it. You're actually wanting people to know. At this point, you've got World of Warcraft players that will just leave en masse. They'll go and play another game while it comes out. And you might think, well, that's a bit mad, because World of Warcraft still go and play that until World of Warcraft 2 at least, and maybe you can even play both in parallel, but at least then shift. But that's not how a lot of people think. I'll give you an example. In vanilla, in my guild, I'm not saying this was common, this was just my guild. So we were in Nax, we'd almost killed Gothic. When they announced the release date for Burning Crusade, we knew a new expansion was coming out, we just didn't know when. They announced the release date, and it was for in 2 months' time. We got no further in Nax, because loads of players in that guild just stopped. They thought there was no point in finishing Nax now. And I was like, what? Huh? And basically their argument was, and it was ridiculous to me, but this is how some people will think. They said, what is the point in finishing off and getting Nax gear when we're just going to upgrade it with questing greens and balloons in TBC? So they stopped. People would do the same with World of Warcraft. It'd be like, what's the point of doing this? They're not thinking about the enjoyment they're getting from right now, or I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of people, they're thinking to themselves, well, it's going to end. So, what's the point? So you could well see an exodus. And this is before you're making any money. So you're pumping in these couple $100 million, because that's what you're asking for. You're asking for a couple $100 million to develop an MMO, probably about something like that, in a few years. And that money's all been pumped in, but you're not getting any return until you can start selling it. And now you're even losing your revenue from World of Warcraft because you've announced this thing. So, yeah, I would see this as difficult to get past the money people. So how would you get another Warcraft game past them? For my money, it would be quite straightforward. And this is what I fear. This is not what I want. Either you make a Warcraft-based game that's not an MMO, so it's not a direct competition with World of Warcraft. It's not going to be a better version of World of Warcraft, because that's what we'd want of World of Warcraft 2. The alternative is, and this has been my fear for some time now, there's been a lot of MMOs produced, big title MMOs, for the mobile market. Now, if they were to produce a version of World of Warcraft for the mobile market, that would be appealing probably, for the money side of it. Probably doesn't... I don't know, I'm not an expert in how much these things cost. I can't imagine that costs as much as developing it for a PC or a console. Also, we know how microtransactions work on these mobile games, don't we? You make them free to play, you get kids to play it. No. Do this thing. It's you can spend an hour grinding this thing. Or do you know what? Spend $1 and we'll give you it now. Mom, can I have $1? Mom, can I have $1? Mom, can I have $1? Yeah, have $1. There you go. Shut up. And you do that on a wide enough platform, you can make a load of money. Loads of money. Just by charging little tiny bits. But for a massive player base. So that would have a certain appeal. Not for me, obviously. Even have the microtransactions, the idea of mobile gaming for me is anathema. The best hope for me, though, because you would have to... This is what I mean. I really don't think they can do a World of Warcraft 2 on the PC, as a PC game as it is now. Because, as I say, they can't hope to make it more profitable than World of Warcraft, because it would have to recoup that development cost. And I can see it, in the short term, losing revenue from World of Warcraft as well, when people just leave it, go off and play something else and come back waiting for the World of Warcraft 2 to come out. So what would you do? You need to make sure it can go to a larger market. So the two ways to do that, as I say, there's mobile gaming. The other thing is doing what Elder Scrolls Online did, which is on the console. That would be the best option for me, because if you produce an MMO for a mobile, you ain't producing it for the PC. If you produce an MMO for a console, which is a much like... Again, PC gaming is a really small share of the gaming market, because not many people have PCs to game on, or even PCs of a quality enough to be able to play well on it, whereas consoles are just as they are. And you know, a PC that costs as much as a console wouldn't be very good at all. So, yeah, you could open up the console market. The downside for that is it might go down the way of Elder Scrolls Online, because the developers of that always argued they were making it for the PC and they went, oh, do you know what? This would work on a console. We might as well make it for console as well. No one believes that. That's a load of crap. It was made for the console, and they might as well make it for the PC as well. It was beta on the PC version was the beta version, basically, for the console. And, you know, demonstrated by the fact that they brought it out on PC in a very unready state. It was clearly not ready. Wasn't working properly at all. And there was a date for the console release after that, but they put that back. They cancelled. As soon as they saw it wasn't working properly on the PC, they cancelled it and they brought it out much later on console, because they had to make sure they got the console market right. So my fear would be that. But at least it would be another MMO, another World of Warcraft MMO, and it would be on the PC, albeit with maybe a UI that's not actually all that great. But maybe Blizzard being Blizzard, who do show good attention to detail, perhaps they would do what I wish they'd done with Elder Scrolls Online and actually make a totally separate control system for PC's console, and, you know, at least put that development into it, and maybe then it'll all work out for the best. But anyway, those are just all my thoughts condensed into one video. I'm sure you'll let me know what your comments are below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, we're not going to find out anything at all until BlizzCon, and even then we might find out a big fat nothing about this, because there might not be anything in it. I've only just seen them openly advertising for people to work on this new project anyway, which is not guaranteed to be Warcraft related. They have other games in their stable. But I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Just to a while away, a bit of world questing. Thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.